Happy day, everyone. Food satisfies the body. It is one of the basic needs of all living things, us included. The moment the body is deprived of food, it begins to feel weak and sluggish. So we need food to survive, to stay alive, and to function. However, this food only satisfies the body. It does not satisfy the spiritual hunger that we experience from time to time. In fact, the more we desire for food that satisfies the body, the more we ask for more. We are insatiable. That is part of who we are. Look at the Israelites, for example. From the book of Exodus, they grumbled against Moses and Aaron, saying, "Would that we had died at the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt, as we sat by our flesh pots and ate our fill of bread. But you had to lead us into this desert to make the whole community die of famine." They were grumbling and complaining because now they are dying of famine, of hunger. But since they are going to die anyway, it would have been better if they died in Egypt eating meat and bread, or so they thought. So God gave the Israelites food. God gave them manna, fine flakes that formed on the ground. They ate of it and still were not satisfied. Later on, God will even send quails. You see, they failed to realize that in the process of their liberation from slavery, God was freeing them also from the desires of the flesh that binds them in a life of misery and spiritual hunger. Their idea of freedom was freedom from corporeal hunger, but not from spiritual hunger. Same is what Jesus was telling the crowd who were following him after the feeding of the 5,000 people. They were following him now because they have been fed. Last week, they tried to follow Jesus because they were looking for signs, because they saw signs and they want to see more of it. But now they were following him because their bodily hunger was satisfied and they want more. But you see, the feeding of the 5,000 was a grand introduction to Jesus' much even greater plan, and that is to save us from eternal hunger and bodily wants. We are not meant to live forever in this world after all. And while we are here, we will need to eat to stay alive. But we are meant to go back to where we all came from, and that is from God. And the food that sustains us in this world will not sustain us in heaven. Jesus is offering us that food that will give us the strength we need to go to heaven. After this week, we will be hearing about the bread of life discourse of Jesus. He will talk about this bread that came down from heaven, and that whoever eats of this bread will never hunger again. It is Jesus himself. Jesus is that bread. He is the bread of life, and whoever eats this bread will live forever, and the bread that Jesus will give is his own flesh for the life of the world. St. Paul in his letter calls on the Ephesians to no longer live as Gentiles do in the futility of their minds, that they should put away the old self of their former ways of life, corrupted through deceitful desires. That is why we are being called to a renewal of minds and hearts, to put on a new self, a self that hungers not for food that only satisfies the flesh, but for food that satisfies the souls, food that makes us new. So as we hunger for food that satisfies our flesh, may we also seek and eat of this food, the bread of life that satisfies the soul. Jesus en benedici.